My mother-in-law thought that she could trick me. Trick me? She thinks that she's going to get me to sign a loan paper and give her a free house. I mean, she must think that I'm just absolutely born yesterday or something, because I have a trick up my sleeve that's going to embarrass the crap out of her. I don't really care what she thinks about it either. Before I married my husband, I always looked forward to having a good relationship with my mother-in-law, especially because my mom passed away when I was still a teenager, and I thought having a great mother-in-law would fill up the void of my mom, but I met my worst nightmare in human form. When Bob and I started dating, one of the things I've always looked forward to was meeting his family. I did not even know that my anticipation to meet his family, especially his mother, seemed like I was desperate to Bob, and because of that, he kept postponing. Eventually, Bob introduced me to his parents, and I loved them instantly. The first time I met Bob's mom, Maria, I really wanted to impress her. Not impress her by the way you might be thinking, but I wanted to make sure that I'd be her favorite daughter-in-law. Right from the third month Bob and I started dating, we knew it would end in marriage. He was a good guy, and we were very compatible. Like me, Bob and his parents were also born in Europe, but while I knew how to speak the native language of our country, Bob and his parents could not because they were, Americans, and were only proficient in English. Before I got close to Bob's mother, Bob had mentioned a couple times that his mother could become a burden to me in the future if I continued with the way I was going. I didn't mind. I loved Bob's mom, and I always looked forward to spending more time with her. If she called me and asked me of a favor, I would do it without thinking twice. And any time I was less busy, I would always go over to Bob's parents' house, just to help them with their daily chores. The reason I did all of this is because I made a lot of mistakes as a teenager, and my mother and I did not have a good relationship. I felt I could make things right with my future mother-in-law, and that's exactly what I did. So, in the past, I tried building a relationship with older women, but none worked out because they did not understand the intention of my friendship, no matter how much I tried to explain. Even when Bob warned me that I could be setting myself up with his mother, I didn't believe him. I thought he wanted me to give his mother a breather or something, so sometimes I would not visit or communicate with her for a week, and the next week I'd be all over her. The bond between Bob's mother and I grew, and as time passed, I began to notice that she may have been using me. Let me give you some examples. Bob's mother would deliberately refuse to do her dishes on the day she knew I would be coming over, so when I came, I'd volunteer to do the dishes and clean up her messed up kitchen. The same applied to grocery shopping. To add to that, she was disabled, and she depended on her disability check, which was not a lot. Often, she would call me to lend her some money, and no matter how much it was for me, I could not say no. Personality-wise, I was someone who could not say no to anyone. I didn't want to think of me as a bad person, and in Maria's case, I did not want her to see me differently. For the next 2 years, Bob and I dated, and my relationship with his mother kept on growing. Sometimes, even when I knew that she was using me, I didn't stop doing what I was doing. I mean, I don't really mind her constantly borrowing $50 or $100 because I wanted her to be happy. Maria knew I looked at her as my biological mother, and I guess she took advantage of that, so deep down, every time I saw Maria smile because of me, I felt like, I was making things right. Trust me, as a teenager, I put my mom in a lot of trouble, and I did not understand the implications of everything. I'd done until I grew older and, my mother passed away. My mother was a single parent, and she did everything humanly possible to give me a good life. But no matter what she did, I kept comparing her to other people's parents, and eventually I ran away from home and did not return until her demise. Even as I share this story with you, it still hurts me that my mother barely had a good memory of me, and she must have died thinking she failed in motherhood, whereas I was the problem. So if you're thinking that I made myself a doormat for Maria, you now understand why I treated her like the way I did. Eventually, Bob and I married, and it was one of the happiest moments of my life. I was not just happy because of the wedding, but I was happy because I had a family I could always fall back on, and I could officially call Maria Mom. Since I worked as a nurse, I became Maria's personal nurse, and this made us close. All the while, I did not know that Maria did not like me as much as I loved her. I actually believe she was the kind of woman who went a little extra, even with the people that she loved. About a year after Bob and I tied the knot, Maria began to talk about having children. Already, Bob and I decided that we would stay at least 3 years before having kids, so we could just put everything in place. When we explained everything to Maria, she kicked against our decision immediately. She gave us all the reasons why we should have kids early and why we should not wait. As of that time, Bob had been laid off from the organization he worked for, so our financial burden was on my shoulders. Even at that, Maria still called to borrow some money, and she would always whine about how small the money she received from her disability was. Most of the times, she would send me a text and say that she knew she was already owing me a certain amount of money, and she promised to pay back as soon as she had the money. The funny thing was, I did not even keep a record of the money that she owed because I knew she would simply not pay it back. I only lend her money out of love, not because I expect her to pay it back everything she owes. She was the one who always mentioned the amount she owed in her messages. Maybe she did that to convince me she would pay back something. The first few times Maria talked about me and Bob having children early, I thought it would end there after we told her we were not ready, but I was wrong. Anytime Bob and I went over to her house for dinner or just to pay her a visit, she would always bring up the topic. In the beginning, I did not even have issues with her saying it repeatedly, but I began to have issues when she would send me YouTube videos. Baby pictures, pictures of a married couple with children. It got to my neck, and I had to tell Bob about it. Bob assured me that he would talk to her, but that seemed to make things worse. Because of our closeness, she would call me to ask if I needed recommendations from a fertility doctor and other annoying things. There was even a time she assumed that I was barren, and she began to throw a tantrum. And because of her constant bugging me, I began to give her space. I stopped visiting the home like I used to. I reduced our phone calls to once, maybe twice a week. I also made sure that every time I spoke with her over the phone, Bob was there. So it would be more of a couple call and not a private call. Thankfully, 2 years after Bob and I married, Maria understood that she's doing this the hard way, and that we were only going to have kids when we were ready, and not because she wanted us to. Even though I wasn't close to her anymore, I always had her on my mind, and I extended my help whenever I could. Also, by this time, she was in good shape and fit to resume work, so she no longer asked for money as much as she used to when she was on her disability check. About 4 months after Maria resumed work, Bob also got a very high-paying job in another country. So slowly, I found myself getting closer to Maria again. This time around, our relationship felt like it was on a different level, because she no longer asked for favors, and she could comfortably do the things that she could not do before. It wasn't like I didn't have friends I could hang out with. I did, and I always hung out with them. But I believe a mother has a special place in our lives, and our friends have their own place as well. While I was busy thinking that Maria no longer needed my favor, I found out that she was trying to trick me into signing her home loan papers. For weeks, she had been talking about purchasing something that would also require my signature. And I was cool with it. I trusted her to the extent that I did not confirm what it was that I needed to sign for. She later said that she wanted to get a car and needed me to co-sign. But one day, I found out that she has been lying to me. Well, that day I was with her in the living room one evening, and we were just spending time together. Then she thought of making a quick snack for us. She left her phone on the couch, and a few minutes after she left, a message popped up on the screen. I was curious to see who it was, and that's how I found out that the car papers that she's been talking about were not actually car papers, but a home loan. Well, as you can imagine, I was furious, and I thought about confronting her right then and there, I knew I would say a lot of hurtful words to her if I did confront her, though. So I stayed mute and left shortly after she returned with the snacks. When I returned to my apartment, I could not stop thinking of ways to show Maria that I was smarter than her. Eventually, I came up with an idea. I made a document in our country's native language and I printed it out. I did this because I remember Maria was only proficient in English and simply would not understand what was written on the paper. On D-Day, Maria called me and said that she had gotten the papers from the dealer's shop and she asked me to come over to her house and sign them. I took the other documents with me and I thought of ways to trick her too. When I got to her house, I asked for the documents and I told her I wanted to have a copy in my native language. She fell for it. I drove off from her place and pretended like I wanted to go and print out the subtitled document. I returned minutes later with the document I made the previous night and I convinced Maria that we would both sign the document instead of the original home loan papers, and she happily agreed. Since I had to leave for work in the afternoon, I left Maria in a hurry and told her I would drop by later in the evening. When I went back to Maria's house later that day, I thought that she would have realized that I fooled her. And I expected her to send back the papers to the company. To my greatest surprise, I met a small house party. Maria had invited a few of her friends and they were all drinking and laughing. I did not know that Maria was celebrating the signing of the house loan papers, and everybody in the room, except my father-in-law, knew what she had done. Immediately I entered the house and I noticed that Maria did not look very happy to see me. In fact, she was more focused on her visitors, and to spite me, they talked about the loan right there in my presence. When I understood what was going on, I decided to play dumb. I asked Maria about the loan papers she's referring to, and she burst out into a laughter. She even went as far as calling me a poor thing. Then she explained that she had tricked me into signing her home loan papers, but she deceived me into thinking she wanted to get a new car. I allowed her to feel good about her deception for a minute before I spilled the beans. The thing is, even though I did not know Maria wanted to trick me, I would have still found out the day I signed. I mean, come on. Everything on the document was written right there in plain English, so I would have read it before signing, and I still wonder how she planned on getting my signature without reading the documents first. Come on! But I still prefer the humiliation that I gave her. After bragging to her friends in my presence, Maria was kind of surprised that I did not react. I remained calm, and at that point I understood that no one could ever replace the position of a biological mother, no matter how well we treat them. To ruin her moment, I told Maria to try translating a line from the document she's holding. At first, she was hesitant, but after she saw the boldness on my face, she did a quick language translation on her phone. The first line of the document read, and I quote, "I am attempting to deceive my daughter-in-law, but I've been busted because she already knows." Immediately, she read out the line, and she looked at me with her eyes popping in anger. Without wasting time, she starts yelling at me and calling me all sorts of names. She said she always knew I've been pretending to be a good daughter-in-law, and she regrets letting her son marry me. Those words really cut deep, and I yelled back at her. I could not watch her humiliate me like that in front of all those people when she was actually the one at fault. I have no regrets for what I did, and I did that to teach her a lesson. Maria knew there was no way I would agree to sign her home loan papers, so she thought it was smart of her to trick me into signing them. The issue now is that Maria's caused a big issue between Bob and me. She must have told Bob that I insulted her and humiliated her in front of her friends. It's been a week now, and Bob's refused to take my phone calls or respond to my messages. The most frustrating part is he has not even heard my side of the story. I've been calling him repeatedly, and all my phones just go straight to voicemail. Also, he was supposed to travel back home last weekend, but he did not, and he has not said anything since then. So, the kind of feel bad, but I have no regrets. My question is, am I the a-hole? For playing a smart one on Maria and for yelling back at her. I know she's my mother-in-law and an elder, but I could not let her play the victim card. I look forward to your comments. Update number 1. Hey guys, thank you for the comments on my original post. You're all saying I should not feel bad, but it's not been that easy. Last week, Bob came home and he had an attitude. I tried to explain everything to him, but no matter how hard I tried to explain, he just insisted that it was wrong of me to humiliate his mother like that. He completely ignored the fact that his mom tried to trick me into signing her home loan papers. He was so angry, and he said that I should have called him to tell him when I found out Maria's intention. As for Maria, I have not visited or talked to her since then. I'm still in shock that despite everything I did for Maria, she still treated me the way that she did. Now, the most annoying thing is that Bob is threatening to divorce me if I don't apologize to Maria. Just 2 days ago, we had a heated argument about it, and he left the house in the morning with some things. Later that evening, I found out he was at his mother's house with a lady he had a history in the past with. He was even bold enough to post their picture on Facebook, and they just all seemed to be having a good old jolly time there, while I wallowed in loneliness. To be honest, I expected that Bob would see me from perspective and understand that what his mother did was oh so wrong. I don't think he talked to her or even condemned her act. Despite being on his work break for 2 days now, I have not seen Bob. The last thing he said was, he would prefer to lose me than let a woman destroy his relationship with his parents. That was very hurtful to hear, and it pains me that Bob now thinks of me as a homebreaker. Of all people, Bob knew why I always treated his mother with love. I told him what happened in the past between me and my mom, and he used that against me. He insulted me and said a lot of things I would never expect to hear from him. Another thing is, even if I apologize to Maria for busting her butt, things can never go back to the way it used to be between us. I don't even see myself getting along with her or any of Bob's family members ever again. People who know me in real life always say that I'm too kind and soft, and I think it's about high time I change it. I don't want to be known as the soft, weak Jade anymore. Most times I wish I was, the same stubborn teenager, but I've grown wiser and a bit more compassionate now. Being rude to Maria is not reason enough for Bob to divorce me, and to be honest, I love Bob so much, and I do not want to lose him. Please, guys, advise me on what I should do. Even though Bob sounded oh so serious, a part of me thinks that he's bluffing. Is this a sign that something bad will happen? Or maybe, I'm just being paranoid. Update number 2. Hey guys, I don't even know how to share this. So after some of you suggested that I go talk to Bob, I decided to show up at his mother's house to confront him. There, I met Lisa, the girl Bob dated before me, and she was there with Bob and his parents, and I could even hear their loud laughter from inside their home. When I knocked on the door, Bob answered immediately and he pulled me away from the house. He was so mad that I just showed up at his parents' house and told me to face that I was no longer welcome there. I tried to talk to him, and he insisted that if I wanted us to talk like a couple, I had to apologize to his mother. Well, I did. At the moment, I really wanted things to work out between us, and I missed Bob so damn much. Eventually, I went into the house and apologized to Maria. I did not apologize from my heart, I only did that because of Bob. To humiliate me more, Maria insisted that she would write me an apology, and I would have to read it from the note. When she was done, I was shocked to see the demeaning things that she wrote, and at that point I changed my mind immediately, and I walked out of the house. As soon as I walked away, Maria laughed and Bob and Lisa joined her. I still can't shake off the betrayal. When I got home, I texted Bob that I was ready for the divorce, and I contacted a divorce lawyer. I expected that he would beg me or tell me he was joking, but he only responded with, "Okay." As for Lisa, before I met Maria, Bob already told me that Maria loved Lisa a lot, but they had to end things because he felt Lisa was not the one for him. This was even more reason trying to impress Maria, and now that I think of it, I've realized how foolish I've been. I won't pretend like I don't know or did not notice. I suspected several times that Bob was cheating on me. The only time he took his call in my presence was either when his mother or father called him. As for the remaining calls, he would always excuse himself to take the calls outside, and aside from these, there were other tall tale signs that Bob must have been in an affair. but I always shrugged off the thought. I've seen people ruin their marriage because of assumptions, so I did not want to jump to conclusions until I was sure. And even though Bob was not cheating on me, taking Lisa to his mother's house despite me was a straight slap on the face. I think this divorce is the best thing for us, and I really wish there was something I could do to teach Maria a lesson, but I'll let her be. Update number 3. Hey guys, what would I do without you all? Absolutely nothing. So, out of all the comments that you all left, my attention was the comments that said I should make Maria pay back all the money that she borrowed from me. I thought about it, and after gathering proof, I decided to sue her. Before I did that, I sent her a message that I wanted all the money that she owed me, and she did not respond. So, I also texted Bob, and his response was, "Get a life, Jade. Stop being so needy." After Bob responded, I did not text or call anyone again. I filed a case and waited for Maria to get served. No kidding. The money she owed me was over $3,500, and she's been keeping the recording of it, so the evidence I used was the messages that she sent me every time she wanted me to lend her more money. On the day Maria got served, she was so angry. She kept blowing up my phone, and I deliberately did not take any of her calls. Bob called too, and his father sent several messages. Already I had moved out of the apartment we lived in, so he did not know how to find me. For days, they kept texting me and calling me, and Bob even sent a message that we could settle everything out of court and that he still loved me. I was so disgusted by the messages, and I blocked him. Well, blocking him did not work because he kept calling with another number, and eventually the day of the court hearing came, and Maria showed up with her entire family. She brought Bob and his father as their witness, and I could see them glaring at me from the other side, and the judge asked me some questions. As usual, I explained myself. Then she asked Maria. Surprisingly, Maria denied borrowing any money from me. She even claimed that it was Bob she used to borrow money from, never me. I knew Maria was something else, but I did not expect that she would do something like that. Thankfully, I printed out all her messages and text messages with me, and I presented them to the judge. When Maria saw the messages, she laughed. She told the judge that anybody could have sent the messages and that there's no proof that she sent them. The good thing was, the message was very detailed, and Maria mentioned things like the amount that she received on disability and other things, so it was enough proof that she sent those messages herself. In the end, the court ruled in my favor, and she was ordered to pay me back $3,750. $3,750. I have learned my lesson with Bob, and I'll never try to love somebody more than they love me again. I'm just glad that I have my money back, and I can start my life fresh. Sincerely, dragging Maria to court really feels good. She was so careful to not bring up the money she owed after she resumed working, and I did not ask for it because I gave it to her out of love. But upon realizing that Maria and her family did not love me as much as they claimed, I had to dance to their tune. Anyways, thank you everybody for your support so far. There's no way I would have done this by myself. I'm stronger, wiser, and smarter because of you. As for the divorce, as soon as the papers are ready, I'll be ending things officially with Bob. You guys are the best. I don't know what Maria was thinking. All I know is at the end of the story, OP was able to recover nearly $4,000 that belonged to OP. I do want to hear your thoughts on it, guys. Have you ever personally tried to give a helping hand to your mother-in-law, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, any in-law, and it backfired on you? Go ahead in the comment section down below and share your stories. My name's Mr. Reddito, and I narrate stories like this every single day. I'm talking in-law dramas, inheritance dispute, mother-in-law is my favorite sort of issue we cover, because you never know what's going to happen. Also, wedding fiascos, stuff like that, just full of drama. If you want more videos, hit that subscribe button. It helps support the channel a lot. Thank you guys for that. I'll catch you tomorrow, but do remember one thing. It's cool to be kind. See ya.